Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
podcast for parents and families everywhere.
Whether you have kids that plan to attend college or you have current college students, you want them in and you want them to graduate.
You want a quality education that will give you a skill set that will make you marketable for the jobs of today and the jobs of tomorrow. I am Mark Stucker, and I'm a college coach from Metro Atlanta.
And I am Anika Madden, and I am a parent, also from Atlanta, currently in North Carolina.
And I'm David Williams, and I'm a dad from Chicago, Illinois. This week in the news, applications are down in most colleges, especially for under-resourced students. We explore an interesting article by Jessica Dickler in CNBC. Mark and Anika will discuss what advice do you have if I want to appeal my financial aid award. Our question from a listener is, how do I get an opportunity to do research with a professor? Our interview is the final part with Chika Nwosu discussing her freshman and sophomore year at University of Miami. And our college spotlight is the University of Oregon.
So, Dave, last week we said Happy New Year to everybody because our episode went live December 31st, but we didn't do any New Year's resolutions. Putting you on the spot, my friend.
Yes.
Any New Year's resolutions?
Nah, just to basically, hopefully, not listen to so much cable news.
That's going to be challenging for you. You're
I know.
Addict. I got a couple this year. I want to get back into the Word of God and do more Bible reading. So it was 2019 was not a good Bible reading year for me. So, or 2020, sorry. So I want to do that. Yeah. And then with my business, and this was actually an idea that I got from a client who actually listens to the podcast a lot. I want to send out not quite like a fancy newsletter that has all the bells and whistles with graphic marketing, but regular like updates to everybody. This is what you should be doing now, that kind of thing. Just keep in touch by email twice a month. So I'm intentionally saying that publicly because a lot of people I work with listen here. So now I'm going on record with some accountability. So now I got to do it. Got to step up my game.
Good for you.
All right. You ready? You ready?
Yep. Let's do it.
All right. So I'm taking an admissions tip today from right out of a session I had. So I had a session today with a student in Connecticut, and he's already in 4 really good schools. He's kind of having a really hard time deciding. And he's like, how am I going to decide? And so I probably covered about 9 ways with that in him, but I want to just focus on one here. And what I told him, which I'm telling everybody now, is to individually set up meetings with everybody that's important to you. So, he's really into, a lot of things related to the environment, clean air, especially wind turbines and the technology you can use to replace fossil fuels. And so that component of the engineering program, set up meetings. You want to not talk about job placement and opportunities, set up meetings. Want to know about internships, set up meetings. You've got a food allergy. You want to know whether or not the dining room can meet your needs. Now's the time. Set up meetings with everybody at all your schools under consideration. Come up with a good list of questions. It's not the only way, but it's an exercise that's worth doing, and it's the tip for 154. I don't know if you did any of that, Dave. Did Lauren do that at Yale? I can't remember.
She actually knew where she wanted to go. So
that's true. She was not undecided.
That's right.
That's true.
Once she got that in, it was sort of like, okay, that's it.
Yeah, that's true, because she got in early action and just told all the rest of her schools, I'm done. She in effect almost treated early action like early decision, really.
I think she did.
Yeah.
I mean,
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the first admissions vernacular for 2021, exploring major. What's exploring major?
Exploring major. I gotta think that's a major where you're exploring something.
I don't give you credit when I know you don't know the real meaning and you try to bluff.
I know. I've been going hungry for weeks now.
It's about to be months. So exploring major is a term. Actually, it's a term that our college spotlight of the day, the University of Oregon, uses. They've replaced the term undeclared or undecided with exploring major, which I actually like. It's designed for people that aren't sure what major they want to be coming into college. And so you can actually pick exploring major as your choice. So they've gotten rid of, they used to use at one time undecided, another time undeclared. Now they actually call it exploring major. I kind of like it because it puts more of a positive emphasis on your search rather than make you look like you're out in the middle of the wilderness, completely benighted, not knowing what you're doing.
That makes sense. So
let's turn to college hot topics in the news. All right, Dave, we got a nice hot topic today. Let's take it away, my friend.
Well, the actual title of this article is a little bit misleading as to where we want to go with it. The title is COVID is making it harder to get into a top college. The nation's top schools saw a record number of early applications for fewer spots, by Jessica Dickler. But that's not what we want to emphasize, because the second part of that article was that the rest of the country's colleges are facing a major decrease in enrollment. And we really want to focus on a statement that was made halfway through that, where basically the author says most of the country doesn't care about Harvard. The focus that we want to really talk about is that the vast majority of colleges saw a significant decrease in applications. And by most common measures, one being the Common App, the Common App's applications were actually down 2%. There were fewer students filling out the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. And when you actually looked at actual enrollment, the number of undergraduate enrollees significantly reduced last year, especially freshmen, which was down 13%. So I want to stop now, Mark, and have you interject.
Thanks, Dave. And I actually want to start with something you commented on, which was last year. So we said that the pandemic was going to impact applications last year. And we commented on it and how most schools received less applications than before. We did many in the news. We talked about how more schools were still not full in July and even August than any year on record. But there's some hardcore data here from last year, and I want to actually share it because it does help set the context for what's happening again this year. So overall, undergraduate enrollment fell 4%, and that's according to National Student Clearinghouse research, so that's going to be really accurate. But that's overall enrollment. Freshmen, which were the ones that were not in college already, that were deciding whether to go, fell 13% in 1 year.
All right.
And then here's a quote from Angel Perez, who's one of the real stars out here in the field. Had a privilege of meeting him at Pitzer University when my daughter visited there. And we spent about a half an hour together. But since then, he's moved on to Trinity, and now he is, in effect, the CEO of National Association of College Admissions Counselors. He just recently took over that, and he's highly respected in the field. So he said here, in the coming year, we could see another wave of students not attending college, Perez says. We are very concerned that we're going to miss out on a generation of college students. Now, here's some more of the data. So survey that was done asked colleges themselves, National Association of Business Officers, how did you do last year in your enrollment? And 51% said they had a decrease of more than 5%. 29% said they had a decrease of 0 to 5%. 13% said it was identical. And only 7% said that they had an increase, and that increase was modest. It was just a few percentage points. So that's hardcore data last year, just to kind of put in context. And now we're seeing the same thing again. And so the data that's coming out right now is kind of pretty scary. So I know Dave mentioned that you can look at the Common Apps applications that are come in, and it says they're down 2%. But this is why this number is really scary. First of all, The Common App's 45 years old. They've never seen a decrease from 1 year to the next. Because remember, you've got a growing population, you got growing international students, you got people applying to more schools, and then you've got the growth of online applications. So all those things together have meant you've continued to see an uptick. And this is the first time in 45 years it's been down. But, and this is something, Dave, you wouldn't have got from this article. I actually did some more research, and I read another article that Melissa Korn from the Wall Street Journal authored that came out on November 3rd. And it was called College Admission Season Was Already Stressful. The Pandemic Made It Chaotic. Yep. And so here are a couple quotes from that article. So through November 2nd, the Common App had nearly 8% fewer applications than the same time last year. Now, I thought you said it was just 2% a second ago. Well, the article goes on basically to talk about how, and they also mentioned this in our article, Dave, how international students are spiking up ever since the election.
Yes,
remember how it said
Hong Kong.
Yes, yeah. Especially from Hong Kong, and there was another country they mentioned in there as well.
Singapore, I think.
Yeah, I think it was Singapore. I think you're right. Hong Kong and Singapore. So if you look at domestic U.S., they're not just down 2%, they're down significantly. And then that same article goes on to say, early data show the number of high school seniors who have filled out the free application for federal student aid for next year is down 16% from this time last year. And so that's substantial. Next week, our interview will be Amin Gonzalez. Sorry, Dave, stole your thunder. I know you announced it at the end. Sorry to steal your thunder, my friend. But
all right.
Amin Gonzalez will be the interview. He's the VP of enrollment at Wesleyan University. And Amin and I recorded the interview already. And I was talking with him before our recording, and he was just really bemoaning the fact that, man, it's just brutal out here this year. I mean, he was talking about this stat, FAFSA apps down 16%. And so there's a real concern that you're just going to see more and more and more of a chasm and a gap between the haves and the have-nots when it comes to college. And go ahead, Dave. You're going to say something. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I think in the summary, I really failed to mention that the reasoning behind this is that the pandemic has really done a number on all of on the middle class and the working class. And as more and more people have lost jobs, and as the economic uncertainty has really devastated a segment of the society, it's less first-generation students and less students of lower economic means. You know, Mark and I, we have talked about the K-shaped recovery, how a segment of the population has done extremely well if you own stocks, but the vast majority of people are still really struggling. And this is the reason that it's showing up so dramatically in these college enrollment numbers.
Yeah, and just like the FAFSA numbers are down 16%, Common App data, excluding internationals, as of the first week of November, is also down 16% when it comes to the number of students who are requesting fee waivers. So it's a clear indication that, that's a lot of people. We're talking, we're talking about more than like 1 in 7, 1 in 6, actually, 1 in 6 students and not necessarily low income. Let's just say average income, because if you're applying to an expensive school, I mean, your income could be 3 times the national average, and it's still in your best interest to fill out the FAFSA. And then it goes into some of the reasons. Some people may think, well, why? What's going on with this? And there's 2 quotes I really like. I'd like to read them and then get your thoughts, Dave. So I'm kind of drawn from both these articles, from the Melissa Korn article in the Wall Street Journal on May 3rd. Here's a quote that I really like. It says, most high school students for whom college was just a foregone conclusion, which is most middle class families, right? It says they're still likely headed down that path, college counselors say. Instead, the decline is happening among those who need extra support to get through the application process, or who even picture themselves on a campus. And so then it goes on to say, many students are having a hard time thinking about what's going to happen next fall. And this is the part that really grabbed me. When issues like family job losses and food insecurity or just logging in for your high school class feels like the more pressing need. And then the last quote I want to read, there was a similar quote to this in the article that Dave and I are discussing today. And here's what it says. Amid the coronavirus pandemic, many would-be undergraduates decided to postpone college rather than start their education online. Then it says, or they found the price prohibitive in the face of more pressing financial concerns, including food insecurity and family job loss. So, Dave, I kind of want us to spend just a little time talking about that. Like, because I think if you're very middle class in your mindset, it's possible you don't understand, well, why would, less income lead to less people applying to college? What are your thoughts?
More importantly, the article mentions briefly, but I think it deserves more emphasis, that for those kids who may never go to college or who the pandemic might make it less likely that they finish college, it really has life-altering implications, because we now know that lifetime financial achievement is severely affected if you do not go to college as compared to kids that do. So it's a very serious situation. So the title of this story really is misleading, because it really needs to emphasize how bad the pandemic is potentially affecting the future of most of Americans' kids.
Yeah, and think about it for a sec. Like, if your parents have lost their job, you're worried about getting evicted, or maybe you've been evicted, or you're food insecure. And I wish I could remember it because I just heard it, the stat, but it was stunning, the percentage of Americans that are food insecure right now. I've seen on television.
Greater than 1 in 5, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Greater than 20%.
Better than 1 in 5.
Greater than 20. Yeah,
I think that's it. And I've seen these lines, in Texas and other places, these food banks. I mean, Dave, they've stretched for miles, people in cars, and I've seen some of the people interviewed. It's just gut wrenching and heartbreaking. But if you're food insecure, or you're worried about getting evicted, or, you're having computer issues and you can barely log into your class at school, any penny that you spend on something extra like college is just going to feel like a waste. Like, you're just in survival mode.
That's correct.
So it really is understandable. And I think we can't emphasize this enough, because, I felt compelled to have the conversation we had the last couple of weeks about the apps rising, because this was some unprecedented rises. So it warranted a conversation for those 30 schools. But what I don't want to do is do what the media is so guilty of, which is focusing so much on a few schools that you give a very skewed view. And those few schools are the Stanfords and the Harvards and the Browns and those ones that, that get a lot of clicks. That you give a skewed view of the college admission spectrum. And, I was just interacting on Twitter with both Rick Clark, director of admissions at Georgia Tech, and Angel Perez, who's quoted in this article. I told him that we would be talking about this here because, Rick's been really, really outspoken about this, that this is giving, all of these articles are giving a very skewed view of higher ed. And of course, he's one of the ones in that 1% class, but he's still constantly thinking of the 99%. And I just think we really need to bring balance to what we discussed last week and show what is it like for the overwhelming majority of schools. The pandemic not only decreased their enrollment, but it hit them hard financially too. Lost room and board wages, losing the ability to make money off elective surgeries for schools that have hospitals, having to spend much more money to safeguard your school. All of these things add cost. And there was a quote actually in the article too, Dave, unless I'm getting my two articles confused. There was a quote in the article about how faculty being laid off and tuition freeze. Do you remember that?
Yes, it was towards the end.
I found it.
Yeah.
So it says already universities have furloughed thousands of employees,
right?
Announced revenue losses in the hundreds of millions due to the sudden decline in enrollment. Some have even cut academic programs that were once central to a liberal arts education in order to stay afloat. So, Dave, what should our takeaways be for our listeners?
Well, two things. I think we should have actually put this as a New Year's resolution, that we overemphasize too few schools in the college admission process to the detriment of the great schools that are available. And it really warps our perspective, and that's not good. The fact is that if we never mentioned the Ivy League again, or Stanford again, or MIT again, and mentioned every other school, we'd probably be doing a better service to higher education and to student choices than if we actually continue to emphasize them, because it's not the reality for most kids out there, and it's not necessary for the future of the individual or for the future of this country. And then secondly is the concept of choice. You read this article and the individual student might think that their choices are narrowed, that they have less choice, that it's harder to get into college. Well, in reality, it's never been easier to get into a great college, because the majority of really good, solid colleges are struggling for the good student. And I would argue that if you are a good, solid student, but maybe you're not like the top of the class with perfect scores or so forth, but you're a good, solid B student, B plus student, maybe even a C student, that you've never had a greater choice of colleges than ever before, because colleges want you. It's truly a buyer's market. So my big take home now and going forward is we really need to de-emphasize the few schools at the top. They're just not relevant for most individuals. They're not relevant for the future of this country. And we really have to focus on the solid 85 to 90% of schools that are available to the majority of students here, and that there are great colleges available for all.
I think that's well spoken, Dave. And again, just to underscore and reiterate your point, I mean, 3% of colleges take under 20% of the applicants. 3%. Okay. Right. And so we're sitting here talking about these schools like the MITs and that take 3, 4, 5, 6%. That's less than 1% of the schools out there. And then, I can't wait to get to my college spotlight today. I'm itching to get to it, but I'll throw one stat out from the college spotlight just to reiterate your point. So we're going to talk about a fantastic university, the University of Oregon today, the flagship school for the state of Oregon. Take a guess, Dave, what the acceptance rate is.
Well, we've already said that the national acceptance rate is about 66%. Is that correct?
Yeah, 66, 67.
And I would say it's probably along there. It's between 60 to 70% acceptance rate.
83%.
Oh, wow.
And it's a fantastic institution. So that's just an example of your point right there, you know?
Yeah. Awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. Let's close with that. That was good.
That was great. Awesome.
Now it's time for our step-by-step walkthrough of the college admissions process.
Happy New Year, Anika.
Happy 2021.
2021 is going to be happier than 2020.
Oh, already. It's already.
So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Dave. What's the New Year's resolution?
Oh, I have several this time.
Oh, let me hear them. Because I put my business out on the street with Dave.
Remember, was it last year? We were like, oh, we're not doing resolutions.
Yes, we did one the year before.
Yeah.
It was about running more or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that obviously didn't come to fruition. I mean, I did some, but it was lackluster. So that is already top of my list, of course, is to get my running legs. Yes, back to the running.
So that's one of them.
And my freelance writing. Like,
you can start it up.
Yeah, finally. I'm tired of talking about this stuff.
HandleItMom.com.
Yeah. Well, not just that, just freelance jobs. Like, just writing. I just want to write.
Should our listeners be going to HandleItMom.com? Or are you like, no, not yet?
No.
Still not yet?
It's funny because I've changed the content. Like, I have a little thing up there, because, I'm getting into this social justice thing.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm taking some little classes here and there, and I'm reading more, and
awesome.
So, what about yours?
So I said with Dave that I got to do more Bible reading. It was not a good Bible reading year for me in 2020. I got to up my Bible reading game. I was pretty good with prayer, but not Bible reading. And then I also want to send like, not a newsletter, but like 2 updates to all the people I'm working with every, like one early part of the month, one at the middle part of the month, like with updates about what they should be doing now. Like juniors, this is what you should be doing. Seniors, this is what you should be doing. So and there's a lot of accountability because a lot of people I work with listen to the podcast. So now they're gonna be like, "Where's
Mr. Mark? Where's my?"
So that when I went on record, nobody knows about the Bible reading. That's just like clandestine. I can hide that one, but I want to add another one. I gotta up my exercise game. I just go in spurts. Like I'm great for 2 months and then I'm bad for 2 months. So I gotta up the exercise game.
Right.
That's
there
me.
with ya.
That's me. I'm excited about 2021.
All right, let's go 2021.
All right, Anika, you know we got to do the Twitter.
Oh God, I forgot.
I didn't forget. Because remember last weekend I said, who's Cristiano Ronaldo? And then as soon as we got off the call, I'm like, oh, Ronaldo. Ronaldo. That's right. I just know him as Ronaldo, the soccer player. But the Cristiano threw me off. I felt so stupid.
Oh, goodness.
But we are counting these down. And we have gone from 10 down to 4 this week.
Ooh, okay.
So to recap, if you're just listening for the first time, this is the most Twitter followers. Coming in at number 10, Ariana Grande. Number 9, Ellen DeGeneres. Number 8, Lady Gaga. Number 7, Donald J. Trump. Number 6, Taylor Swift. Number 5, Cristiano Ronaldo. Number 4 with 99.5 million Twitter followers.
Michelle Obama.
Give you a hint. Another musician in our list.
Oh, not Michelle Obama.
No, we have a megastar.
Does Beyonce tweet?
Nope. Good guess.
I was about to say
Rihanna.
She tweets?
Yep.
Wow.
Like, you will be tweeting when you got 100 million people. So we're down to next 3 weeks. We got the top 3, 3, 2, and 1.
I am a Riri fan. I'm a huge Riri fan.
We got some good feedback from people. Said, I'm glad you restored the countdown. So maybe we'll have to do another one after this week. All right. Diving into our content. So we are looking at what happens if you don't get enough money from the college. Is there anything that you can do about it? And this chapter looks at appealing your aid award. Looks at appealing your aid award and really how to appeal your aid award. And so, I break it down into 4 different types of appeals. Nikki, you've read the chapter. What were your thoughts?
Well, out of that 4, I know that one of them you say has the most success out of all of them, but you didn't list that one first. So
yeah. So let's go through because people don't know what we're talking about.
Right.
So do you want to go through one by one and make comments individually on each one?
Yeah, let's do it. So the first way or the first type of appeal is through a numerical based merit appeal.
Correct.
So you get money because of your GPA or your test scores, and you just feel like you didn't hit the top of the range. So, and then I guess it's because you get higher scores along the way too, is where you can go back and appeal it. So I'm gonna let you take it.
Yeah. So the way I would describe this, the numerical based appeal, merit appeal, and I use an example in the book of merit of Mercer University. So they actually have 5 different merit aid awards. Okay, 5 ranges from like 7,500 up to just a little over 20,000, and they're all based on test score GPA interface. And so if you have those numbers, then you get the money. And so the way this one works is a lot of schools that do these, they will say that they'll count the test score up until a certain date. So you might get accepted in rolling admissions in October, but they'll say, look, we'll take your test scores up until April, May, June, some cases. And so if you get a higher test score, you're incentivized to turn it in because now you've hit different thresholds and you're eligible for more money. So this one is kind of just straightforward, really simple. Everything's clear. It's usually pretty clear on the website. If it's not clear what all the different levels are, it is clear that they are clear about the fact that you may be eligible for more money by submitting additional test scores or potentially if your GPA goes up. And it's a way of appealing, and you either have the numbers or you don't. So I think that one's pretty straightforward.
Okay. Yeah, it is.
Anika and I are so grateful for everyone who has financially supported our podcast. It allows us to pay our staff and cover our other auxiliary expenses involved in having a weekly professional podcast.
At the start of every month, we're going to start sending a special gift to anyone who financially supports your college-bound kid.
I will be sending our donors this bonus content once a month directly to your email. The bonus content will be between 10 to 15 minutes in length. Usually it will be a college-related topic that I'm passionate about. Occasionally, it'll be another bonus hot topic in the news segment. Sometimes it'll be an answer to a question that one of our listeners submits to us via email.
And you'll receive these monthly audio blogs for a gift of any amount. We know that $5,000 to one person is $5 to someone else, and we don't want your budget to be a hindrance to you receiving this additional bonus content. So if you want to support our show, just go to yourcollegeboundkid.com and click the donate button. And if you've already financially supported our podcast, you will automatically start receiving this bonus content via your email.
This bonus content is our way of letting our financial supporters know in a tangible way how much we appreciate you. And if you have any questions at all about our monthly bonus content, just send your questions our way. That's to questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com. Once again, questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com. All right, let's move on to. You want to go in order of the book?
Yes.
Or you wanna,
well, yeah, let's go ahead and take this next one. So it's the competitor-based appeal, which was kind of shocking that you had it in here, but you said it was rare. So,
well, it's not as rare as maybe I made it sound. I'll say this: it's more rare with public schools.
Okay,
this is something you definitely see with private schools. So why don't you explain this one so people know what we're talking about?
So what I took from it was that basically you're in high demand and school A gave you more than school B, and you're going to school B and say, hey, what's up? Like, why are you not giving me as much as this other school? I think that's it. Well, I'm sure that's not it, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have a way of just getting to the bottom line, but that's not the way you do it. So basically, you'll find a couple versions of this. You'll find schools that just explicitly tell you right on their website. And I quote Carnegie Mellon right off their website in here. Let me read what that one says. If I can get right to that quote. Carnegie Mellon appears to be acting similar, noting on its site that the university has been open about our willingness to review financial aid awards to compete with certain private institutions for students admitted under regular decision. And then it throws in the zinger. Unlike most institutions, the university states these principles openly to those offered only to first-year admission in regular decision. So they just come right out and say it. Cornell has been pretty clear about it too, but they're very explicit. And if you got a better offer from an Ivy or MIT or Duke, I can't remember if they mentioned U Chicago in there. I think they might. And I remember for sure it's MIT and Duke and the Ivies. Then let us know. So there's the explicit ones that just come right out and say it. And there are a lot of other ones that don't do it explicitly, but they do practice this. So what is this? How do you think this works practically, Anika?
I would think, if you're talking about, because to me, it sounds like these are like the most competitive kids. What I'm getting at is that I'm guessing that this person has been somewhat recruited to some extent. So, I don't know if there's communication between their school counselor and their admissions office, or I feel like they just have a little more spotlight or some kind of, I guess they're more in communication with the students that they're doing this with.
That would be wrong. Nice try.
Really?
Yeah. No.
It makes so much sense.
No. So you're right about the fact that these are really competitive students. So first of all, the fact that it's a merit award means it's usually gonna go to the top kids in the applicant pool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And competitive appeals, the way this works is you reach out to a school that you really are interested in going to. And I do probably, 15 or so of these a year that I work, about maybe more. I walk people through this process. But I'll give the real abbreviated version, otherwise it'll take too long. But basically, you reach out to a school you really want to go to. You thank them for their generosity, but you ask if they'd be willing to reassess their aid offer because other schools evaluated your needs differently. And then you send copies of the actual aid awards from the other schools into the school.
Okay.
Now, if they deem the school that made you a better offer as a competitor, as a peer institution, And if they have the money, and if they're open philosophically to readjusting, then they frequently will readjust. What's happened over the years is that the process of giving money away has changed. Like, there used to be a time where what we gave is what we gave, and there was not a lot of room for sort of haggling and readjusting. Now, financial aid offices kind of expect families to come back and appeal. A lot of times people don't lead with their best offer. Boy, I want to mention a school so badly, but I feel like I just better not because I don't want to take a chance. But I had school recently tell me, talking with me, they said, I'm just going to be honest, Mark, we're not going to lead with our best offer. So if you're working with families that need money, keep that in mind. We're not going to lead with our best offer. So increasingly schools do that. They keep back sometimes millions for these appeals.
Oh, wow.
Now, what they're not going to do, so several things have to be in place. One, they have to be philosophically open to a competitor appeal. Because there are schools that say, look, it is what it is. We gave our best. It is what it is. There's some schools like that. There are other schools that just don't have the money. But then there are others that say, look, we want to get the best and the brightest. And if one of our peer institutions gave you a different assessment, then we're open to evaluating and readjusting. Now, what you won't find is that a school that only gives money away on the basis of need, they won't respond to a merit-based appeal. So you've got the schools like the Georgetowns and the Tufts and the Pomonas and the Haverfords and Swarthmores, and I could go on and on. Most of the NESCAC and Ivy schools, they are strictly need-based exclusively. So, if you respond to them with another award that's merit-based, like if a school gave you, I won this $30,000 merit scholarship, that's not going to work. But you can appeal. You can appeal on the basis of need to a school that gives money away on the basis of need.
Okay.
And if they see that a competitor institution gave you a better award, a lot of times they will readjust. Now, I generally like to tell a school how much money, they would need in order to make it happen. That's the way I do it. Some people do it differently. So, you reach out and you let them know, listen, you're really where I want to go, but there is a significant financial difference in how you assess me versus, these schools send over copies of the 8 awards. And, if we could get, $5,000 more, then we could go ahead and sign up. That's why I like to do it. I like to be explicit. I like them to know on the other side, okay, if we can get 5,000, we can make it happen. Now, they're not going to generally do 20,000, 30,000. You're not going to see that. But when their numbers like 5,000 or under, oftentimes they'll make an adjustment. Had one do it for 9,000 last year. But what they're not going to do is they're not going to give money if a school's less selective than they are. Because they're going to say, yeah, you were a superstar in that applicant pool. That's why they made you a preferential packaged you. But in our pool, you're just kind of an average. I'm not going to tell you that to your face. You're just average. But
they might. I don't know. Y'all kind of hardcore in that admissions world.
So does that you at least understand this, Anika, or any questions about the competitor appeal?
Yeah, no, I get it. I just thought otherwise. I just thought that they were all over the kid and, I don't know.
And I'll tell you this too.
All clear.
Even like at the most selective levels, like the Harvards of this world, they will oftentimes respond if they want a kid and they didn't get it. And if this person got an award from someone who they deem as a peer, which is like Princeton, Yale, Stanford, then I have a friend who used to work in the financial aid office there. She's, they would empty the coffers. So this happens, this definitely happens. All right. You want to move on to the next one?
Yep. So you kind of touched on it. The institutional need-based appeal.
You want to describe this one?
So this is basically your financial package based on your need, like your need-based aid, and you feel like you didn't get enough. Or, wait. Not just that you didn't get enough. Yep. If your financial situation changes.
Correct.
You can go back to some places, not all of them.
A lot of places will respond to this, that if they claim that they meet full demonstrated need, full calculated need, then they're saying they're going to meet your financial need. And if you can show them that my financial need is different than the paperwork that you saw, then a lot of times they will respond to this. So some of the most common things are job loss or reduced hours. Now your income has changed. That's a very significant one. The other really, really common ones you'll see are significant health care expense. Those are ones that are usually the easiest to win. Significant medical expenses, significant dental expenses, those kinds of things. And then the key thing with that is you have to provide documentation. have to provide
documentation. But you're saying these are only at the places that say they meet full demonstrated need, which is not
which
that
are
many,
only
right?
3% of schools. Yeah, right. The reason why those schools have as a policy, as a principle, we are going to meet your need. And so when you can show them that my needs are different than what I shared with you before because my circumstances have changed, they're philosophically committed to meeting your need. So all you have to do is show them that your need has changed, and then usually it's pretty easy to win this if you have good documentation. Okay. Now, if a school doesn't meet full demonstrated need and your need changes, you still should do it. Okay. You still should do this, but they're just not philosophically committed. They can say, listen, I agree with you, your needs changed, but guess what? We don't have the money. Okay. So that's the difference. Like you still should do this if it's a school that doesn't meet full demonstrated need, but they're pretty much philosophically committed to meeting your need if they do. And therefore, it can be really easy to win this if you can provide the right documentation. Okay. I win these ones. I'm always have people that win these every year.
Cool beans. All right.
And the last one.
Yeah, the last one is the Pell Grant appeal. So for those Pell Grant recipients, now I can't actually remember if this one. I mean, I guess you just feel like you should have gotten the top dollar and you just need to go back, or what was that one about?
No, so this one's a little different. So remember, the Pell Grant is federal money.
Right.
So the nice thing about this one is the financial aid officer at the school, if they deem you Pell Grant eligible and they didn't deem you Pell Grant eligible before, or let's say they said you were Pell eligible before, but you only qualified for 1,000 and you show you have a greater need and you should have got 4,000 or 5,000. Mm-hmm. This one can be, this is probably almost maybe the easiest one to win because the thing about this is the financial aid officer is not spending the school's money. They're spending the Department of Education's money.
Right.
And what happens is the Department of Education has agreed to trust the financial aid officer to be arbiters and to make and to exercise professional judgment. They've empowered them to do that. So if you go back and you do, and let's say your job loss or change of circumstances now means you go from not being Pell eligible to being Pell eligible, the financial aid officer at the school agrees with that, then they're not facing, well, we don't have money in our budget. They're approving, and then the Department of Education sends you the free money. Okay. And so the nice thing about this one is this works at all schools, even schools that are completely broke. They can have no money at all. If you can show them, I really should be Pell eligible, or I got a small Pell award, but I should get a larger one, then, when they say it's a big difference when a school is spending their own money because they have all those internal conversations about going over budget and we don't have it. You know that. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You're in a school. And so it's a big difference between spending your own money and spending somebody else's money.
Right.
Now, I don't want to misapply something or infer something that's inaccurate. So they do take the responsibility very seriously because in exchange for the fact that they're trusted by the Department of Education to make this call, there's some really strict and stern wording in there that says if they ever violate that, there are severe consequences. Okay. I mean, and there would have to be because somebody literally could be running a scam, where they could be proving everybody for full Pell and getting a kickback, kickback from somebody. And so, it would be a violation of the law for this to be completely abused. So people take it seriously.
As they should.
So those are the appeals. The first thing I look at it with someone when I'm assessing, I got to say, okay, what lane is our best lane to appeal? Is it going to be, institutional merit? Is it going to be institutional need? Is it going to be a Pell Grant appeal? Or is it going to be a competitor appeal? And in some cases, there's no basis for an appeal.
So that's just it.
So that's it. But it's absolute. But listen, I definitely have the belief that sometimes people think, well, if I appeal and I lose, are they going to look at me cross-eyed or take away my offer? Not at all. Like your offer is your offer. So there's no harm in trying. If you think there's a chance that you could win, you should do this.
Okay.
That's all I got, Anika. Anything else?
Nope. I think you've done it.
All right. Let's go to our question.
It's time for a question from one of our listeners.
Okay, our question comes from a student who is located in Nebraska. And this student wants to know how to get an opportunity to do research with a professor. But I have a sub-question. Is this student a current student, or are they just thinking in advance in high school?
So this is a current student who I'm working with. And
I'm sorry, a current college student. I should have clarified.
No. She's a current high school senior. Okay. And she asked me this question in one of our meetings. And I thought, this is a fantastic question. I think our listeners would love to know the answer to that. Would it be okay if I used it on the Your College About Kid? She said, sure. Just say I'm anonymous. Don't be putting my name out there. So that's why I said, can we say Nebraska? She said, sure.
Okay. Thank you.
So this is actually a really important question because there can be incredible opportunities to do research. And there's not a lot of places where you get training on how do you get these opportunities? And so what I tell people to do, the first thing you want to do is go and start researching on the websites of the college that you're going to and find out which professors have done research or are doing research in areas of your interest. Well, there's nothing more exciting to a professor than for a student. And this can be an incoming student, by the way, or it could be a current student. Okay. So this is what I'm saying here applies to a current college student or to a high school senior about to enroll. Either one, same thing. There's nothing more exciting to a college professor than for a student to be passionate about their topic, their area of interest, because that's their baby. They're all in. I mean, these professors, they live in the. I was just listening to one, talking about there's nothing like being in the archives. There's just no high like being in the archives. Like that's why you're a college professor. You love to hang out in the archives. And so so you reach out to them. You let them know I'm aware of the research you've done or are doing. You explain to them what you've done, why you're excited about that. And you say, I'd love any opportunity to help you in any way. And I encourage people to come in with that servant attitude like that. Like, whatever I can do to help you, I just want to be a part of that. And there are you're going to get a lot of real favorable response if you do that. You should encounter a fair amount of success, doing that. And then it can lead to other things. For example, if you're a student that gets work study, it's a possibility that your research can become a work study job. And now you can actually get paid for it. And so it can go from an unpaid opportunity to a paid opportunity.
It's always good.
Yeah, but this is something that can work for an incoming student, for a current college student. You basically reach out. So first step is you do the research. Do the research to find out what research they're doing or have done. Then you take the initiative to reach out. You say how interested you are, why you're interested, and tell them, I'd love an opportunity to work with you. I'm willing to do whatever I could. I can do research. I can, whatever you want me to do. Is that something that you're open to? And I recommend asking if you can set up an opportunity to have a Zoom call just to chit chat about it.
So, Mark, but wait, I'm trying to think of what type of kid this is, because I'm one of those parents that's always trying to force their kids to do stuff. So right. Is this student? You are. I know that. I mean, is this student someone because she's thinking about graduate school? So she's like, I know I need to do research in my area, or I just love research and it's just a genuine, like, why should this student be going after research with the professor?
So this is a student who's number one in her class on pace to be valedictorian. So she's one of them, high achieving, and she's interested actually potentially even in being a professor, college professor.
So clearly along the lines of what she wants to pursue career wise,
Yeah, like I've seen her writing on intersectionality. I mean, she's really deep.
Okay.
Wow. And so she's, and she's an intellectual. She's very bright and very highly motivated, very intellectually inquisitive. And she just has that love of learning. And so that, some people know that's what they want to do, or at least they're considering it. One thing she's considering possibly is a career as a college professor. It's one option.
So are we going to take it a step further and say, okay, well, these are some things that students should be considering because they're in certain types of fields, and like this, how do we?
So here's what I'll say. I mean, having research can be one of those things that can look really, really good on your resume.
Okay.
But it also has to come from the heart. This is not the kind of thing that works for someone who doesn't want to do it,
Well, but not so much that they don't want to do it, but just don't know much about it. Like, okay, correct. That might be something that I just may want to do. And I just, I may need to do it. Like to your point about, boosting up the profile resume or, graduate application or whatever.
Well, the other thing, sometimes I'll encounter people and they say, I don't like to read. And I challenge them on that. Mm-hmm. And my challenge to them, I said, I don't believe you don't like to read. They said, what do you mean? You don't believe I don't like to read? Are you trying to tell me I don't like to read? I know myself better than you. It's really funny. You should hear these conversations. And I said, here's what I believe. I believe you have things that you like and you enjoy. You just have not found something yet in an area of your interest. And once we get something in your area of interest, then you're going to enjoy learning.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because there are a lot of people that may think they may not want to do research, that if you push the right button for them, like let's say you've got someone, they're all into sports, all their, sports, and so they're thinking about research, but then they find out someone's doing, a research project on different related to, I'm just making this off the top of my head, but something to do with sneaker contracts in the NBA and how players in the NBA land sneaker contract. That might be really appealing to like a basketball junkie. Mm-hmm. Oh, if that's the topic, yeah, I'm all in, or how sports agents end up landing, the top players in the NBA, so you can maybe unlock something with somebody if they learn about an opportunity that's in an area of their interest.
Okay.
And of course, when I say research, there's all kinds of research. Mm-hmm. There's scientific research, there's medical research, then there's social science research. There's historical research. There's language research, sociology. I mean, every major discipline has research. But from my experience, it is still something that a certain kind of student this appeals to, especially if we're talking about a high school senior. Mm-hmm. If we're talking about a college student that's in college a little bit more, they tend to be much more open to this.
Okay.
That's just my experience. I mean, I don't think that many high school seniors are thinking about coming and doing this.
Right. And that prompted my whole question. I'm like, what kid is thinking about research?
You're like, what kind of student is this? I mean, I don't get that question a lot. That's a question that I might get asked every 3 years by somebody that's as a high school senior. Mm-hmm. So that in itself says, she's pretty exceptional in that regard.
Okay. All right, Miss Lady from Nebraska.
Yep. You go, girl. Okay, friends, this is the last segment of my interview with Chika Nwosu, and it's a really, really good final segment. So Chika starts out by giving her advice about the one thing that every junior and every senior in high school can do right now so that when they get to college, they are prepared and they're ready. And she really emphasizes this one thing. So that's my tease. You don't want to miss it. Then she talks about the type of student that she feels is a good match for Miami. Next, she transitions and she talks about, in her opinion, which academic departments at Miami are the best ones. And she's also transparent with you about ones she thinks they need to up their game a little bit. And she shares her future plans with us. And then she ends with one more tidbit of advice for students. Listen and enjoy.
And now, this week's interview with a special guest.
So, Chika, I want you to think about sophomores, juniors, and seniors in high school, because a lot of our listeners are parents of sophomores, juniors, and seniors. We have a lot of college counselors who listen as well. And then we do have, and God bless them, the parents that start with early kids and they're soaking all this knowledge up, so they can be way ahead of the game. But our largest cohort are parents of 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. So what skills or habits do you recommend that they start to develop that you feel will, make their transition to college more successful?
I think the biggest thing, and I can't stress this enough, is just the ability to study by yourself and take your education into your own hands. I feel like in high school, a lot of the time, we put learning the material on the teachers and the teachers alone. And if the teacher didn't do a good job at teaching you, then you did your best. And in college, that's not the thing. The professor will come to lecture and they will teach what they have. but a lot of the learning will be done, and a lot of the learning and the studying will be done on your own time outside of the classroom. You only go to class Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, or once a week. So I would say the biggest thing is learning how to read textbooks and be comfortable reading textbooks ahead of class, not after the lecture. So if you're going after chapter 10 and 11 on Monday, then that weekend you need to have read chapters 10 and 11. It's not enough to just be with the teacher. You need to learn how to take initiative and be able to read the textbooks and be practicing the problems that aren't assigned, because they're not going to be assigning practice problems. You just need to know that you went through chapters 10 and 11, so that the problems at the end of chapter 10 or 11 are on you to pick the ones that you need to focus on. It's a lot of, I think, for everyone, regardless of your major, college is very much an individual race, and you need to learn what you're not so good at, and you need to take your education in your hand and not put it all on your professor. That's the number one advice that I could give.
That's great. That's great. Listen up there, parents, students, counselors. That's good stuff. That's really, really, really good stuff. So another question. I know for a fact, because I know some listeners that are considering Miami now, even as we talk, you and I talk. Talk to me about the kind of student that you think would fit in well in Miami, as well as maybe the kind of student that this might not be the place for you.
I think, if I'm going to be very frank,
and that's what I want you to be. That's why you're on here.
Miami is good in like the pre-med area and the business area. I will say that like our College of Engineering isn't the strongest. So just in terms of just like academics and like what you're majoring in, that's definitely something to take a look at. Our business school is fairly strong. Our pre-med program is fairly strong. Our College of Engineering isn't that strong. Our School of Comms has a lot of opportunities to have like hands-on experience and stuff like that, which I like. That's just in terms of academics, if that's what you're looking for. In terms of the type of student that you are, I would say as long as you're an open-minded student and like a diverse student in mind, like in thought, then you would fit in at Miami, because Miami is a very diverse campus and they do care about like minorities and just having everybody's voice fit in. So if you're a very narrow-minded kind of person, and like if you look around and you don't have a lot of diversity in your friends, then I don't know how well you might feel at Miami, just because it's very open campus in terms of we care about each other and we care about like not just what you identify as, but what other people identify as, and just like what you look like, and diversity of thought. It's just very diversity driven. So I feel like as long as you're okay with that, I mean, I don't know what it says if you're not okay with that, but definitely that's something we place a very big emphasis on. So I think that like that is what, if you would fit in or not fit in, academic wise, the strengths, and then just as a person.
So I know, in high school it's really structured. You have a lot of classes. You go from class to class to class, and there's not a lot of time in between. And then you go to college, and you literally might have 15 hours of classroom out of 168 for the whole week. And so that there's a lot of time that is free. And how have you handled that? And do you have any advice for people on how they can handle sort of all of that freedom?
I think, again, some people work better when they're busy. Some people, they manage their time better when they have a lot of things to do. Whereas for some people, that'll feel very overwhelming. They'll crash down, and that's not a very good idea for them. So what I would say is you have to find out what kind of student you are, and then just don't overload yourself. I definitely would think that my freshman year, I had a lot of classes back to back to back to back. It felt kind of like high school. I did have a lot of like all my classes in the morning. I went from class to class to class, and I was like kind of done for the day at like 2:10, which is similar to what my high school was like. And that wasn't very bad because my Tuesdays and Thursdays were a little bit lighter and stuff like that. But I did realize that the days that I would have no classes, it's kind of just like you're out of the school mentality. So you're not really being as productive as you would be if you had classes that day. Whereas once you start getting into the upper level courses, where again, just because you don't have class doesn't mean you don't have work to do. So sometimes building free time into your course load is not just free time to sit and watch TV or sit around and just sit around and twiddle your thumbs. It's free time used to be preparing for the classes that you do have. So I know for me, I left my Wednesdays and Fridays pretty much free this semester, like this upcoming spring, because I know my Tuesdays and Thursdays are heavier course load. So I want to be able to go to class those days and study the fall other days. You don't want to have where it's class, and think that's where you're going to be learning, because you have to build in time to study, and then also just time to just be human, because at the end of the day, you don't want to burn out. So you have to just build in that time of knowing you're going to study, but also knowing that, like, to have time to spend with your friends and go out to eat and stuff like that. So I feel like it's a very much balance of classes, time to study, time to relax.
Let's take a break to learn about Mark's recommended resource for the week.
Friends, if you've been a regular listener of the YCBK podcast, you have heard me reference the National Student Clearinghouse. My recommended resource for episode 154 is www.studentclearinghouse.org. Now, most U.S. colleges and universities depend on the Clearinghouse for verification and reporting service through their Student Tracker research service. Student Tracker is literally the only source of college enrollment and degree data. Nearly 3,600 colleges and universities, enrolling over 99% of all the students in public and private institutions in the United States, regularly provide their enrollment and their graduation data to the Clearinghouse. The Clearinghouse is also the nation's largest provider of electronic student record exchanges and post-secondary transcript ordering services. So thousands of high schools also use the Clearinghouse, including the KIPP School in Atlanta I'm affiliated with. They rely on the Clearinghouse for determining where their high school graduates are currently enrolled in college, as well as whether their alumni have gone on to get college degrees. It's just really hard to keep track of students once they leave. You can also go to studentclearinghouse.org and find some extremely helpful reports on topics such as transfer statistics and data, enrollment projections and estimates, high school graduation data, college retention information, college completion data, and demographic data on college completers. We will now return to the final segment of my interview with Chika Nwosu. So, Chika, this is part 3, so you don't get the hot seat anymore. You've already passed the hot seat. But I do want to wind down, and I want you to sort of close out by telling us about your future plans. Like, what do you see yourself doing over the next few years, and what does your future have in store?
Definitely just continuing pre-med and taking those classes and just hoping just to enjoy college and like all that Miami has to offer in its entirety. And then, just upcoming preparing for grad school, MCAT, post-grad stuff. Especially with Corona right now, it's not very solid. It's very changing. So I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to do is just be able to adapt, because I feel like some people weren't able to adapt. A lot of my friends weren't able to adapt, so that hurt them. So I feel like just in the future, I was kind of taking one day at a time, but each day trying my best. And I think that's just the best that I can do, is just taking each day, one day at a time, but trying my best in each of those days. So, yeah.
Well, you've been on the same path, because you've been talking dermatology, I know, at least since your senior year of high school. Yeah. And it seems like you're still on that dermatology path. Want to be a dermatologist.
I am. I still just want to shadow, just because it is an idea that I've had, but I don't want to just keep investing in a dream that I'm not 100% like, I don't know what it entails entirely. So I definitely plan to shadow dermatologists and just different specialties, just to make sure that it's not all talk, that I truly do. That's what I want to do. And I don't want to just talk without knowledge. So I just want to gain some knowledge in all the specialties as well.
Have you heard much about architecture? Because I know Miami brags about having a strong architecture school. They do
have a good architecture school. I did miss out on that, but my friend Katie is definitely engineering, and she's shifting into architectural engineering. And a lot of the architecture kids love it, and they have their studio, and they're always in there working hard. I think we do have a very good architectural program, for sure.
So Chika, any parting comments to the juniors out there, to the seniors out there that are applying right now? Other applications are out. You remember that Some did early action. Some did early decision. Some are waiting. They're stressed. Their parents are stressed. Any words of wisdom for them?
I will say that everything happens for a reason. At the end of the day, you worked hard in high school and you've tried your best. So you're going to end up where you need to be. And even if you don't end up where you thought you wanted to be, you have to just make the best of it. I didn't ever think I was going to end up at Miami. I didn't know about Miami until I started applying to college. And when I tell you, I cannot imagine being anywhere else. The amount of people that I've met, and I love my school so much. So it's just like, go into, like, wherever you get accepted to and wherever you choose, go in with an open mind, because if you start to love if you just go in with an open mind, you will find the best of your school and you will find your people and you will love your school 100%. Like, I can guarantee that. So
that's great advice. Cause I remember specifically, Chika, with you almost weren't going to visit Miami. Remember that? You're like, it's so far away.
Exactly.
Well, your mom was feeling that way too. I don't know if I want my baby. You know, those of you who are listening, I know you may think, well, Georgia and Florida, don't they border each other? So they do, but first of all, Florida's a big state, and when you're down in Miami, you're like south Miami.
Yes.
You know, so from Lawrenceville, Georgia, where Chika lives, to Miami, I mean, that could take 14 hours to drive that.
Yes, it's definitely North Georgia to the tip of Florida. So it's not compared to like Georgia schools like UGA, that's an hour, Georgia Tech or Mercer, that's 2. Miami was definitely very far. And that was a school that I had no intentions of really going. And I went there with an open heart, open mind. And when I tell you, I will bleed orange and green for the rest of my life. Go Canes. I love my school.
The U. But do you remember that conversation where you and I had about like not even visiting because it was so far away?
Yes.
And now look at you. So I think your words of wisdom about keeping an open mind, even if you don't end up where you originally hoped that you might end up. I mean, look at it. You're a living example. So I think let's close with that. And thank you so much, Chika, for part 1, part 2, part 3. And now when Chika's like 25 or she's out in her career, we'll have to have you come back again.
Yes.
Tell us what you've done with your life. But
yes.
I really, I just can't thank you enough. It's been my pleasure and honor to work with you. And we're just all really, really proud of you. So keep up the good work, and your hard work will pay off.
Thank you.
Next week in the news, did students in college housing learn better? An article by Greta Anderson of Inside Higher Education. Mark and Anika will discuss Tell Me 35 Myths About the Financial Aid Process. Our question from a listener is, how is intellectual curiosity assessed and why is this important? Our interview is, and Mark teased it already, with Mr. Amin Gonzalez, the Vice President and Dean of Admission for Wesleyan University. And it's part 1 of 3 on how to effectively utilize the additional information section of the Common Application. And our college spotlight is St. Louis University.
All right. One of the things I'm trying to do is look at what states have we never had a single spotlight for. And I looked, and we had never had a single one for Oregon. We've had several for Washington State, but none for Oregon, lots for California. And we haven't had a single Missouri school. So trying to kind of make some rotations around. We got New Mexico coming up pretty soon as a one we haven't had. But today it's all about the University of Oregon. Founded in 1876, U of O's 295-acre campus is along the beautiful Willamette River. The campus has 80 buildings. Additionally, it's an arboretum, gorgeous, with 500 different species of trees and over 4,000 trees in total. And Eugene is also near many prominent geographic features, such as the Willamette River, the Cascade Mountains, and the Pacific Ocean. And you get to be within 2 hours of Portland. The University of Oregon is organized into 5 colleges: arts and sciences, first, business, 2, design, 3, education, 4, and the honors college. Now, that does not include their 7 professional schools, which are accounting, architecture and environment, art and design, journalism and communications, law, music and dance, and planning, public policy, and management. It's a school that's on the quarter system. Most students take 4 courses at a time, but they actually will allow you, if you have high grades and you appeal and you're probably type A and don't sleep, to take up to 6. That's pretty intense. That's the equivalent of 24 credit hours in a semester. Now, the School of Journalism Communication, which just goes by SOJC, is one of the oldest journalism schools in the United States. Oregon previously had a medical school. The University of Oregon Med School was actually founded in 1887 in Portland, and it merged with Willamette University's program in 1913. However, in 1974, it became its own separate independent institution. So now it's known as the Oregon Health and Science University. So pretty unusual for a flagship not to have its own medical school. But there's a school there. It's just separate from the university. One of the things that Oregon's known for is a very famous alum. I'll tell you a hint, Dave. Tell him you could probably say more. Phil Knight.
Phil Knight. Yeah, Nike.
Yes.
And in fact, he came out with an amazing autobiography just a couple of years ago. But I'll let you guys, I'll just tease that. But yes, Phil Knight.
See, I was feeling sorry for you because you've been striking out a cause spotlight. So I thought I'd tee up one I knew you could hit out of the park, man.
Well, I already know who their mascot is, so I'm waiting for you to get that
you're ready for that one, too. Exactly. So in October of 2016, Phil Knight and his wife, Penny, announced they were giving $500 million to establish the Phil and Penny Knight campus for accelerating scientific impact. And it's a donation that's going to dispersed over 10 years, and it's the largest gift ever given to a public research university. So as Dave mentioned, Phil Knight is, of course, the founder of Nike. And he's also been given a lot of money before now, 30 million here, 10 million here, 20 million. I mean, you go on that campus and his fingerprints are all over it. Track facilities, for example, are just ridiculous. Now, you'll hear occasionally Oregon referred to as UO, but more commonly U of O. So either one you'll hear. I hear U of O more than UO. Let's talk a bit about their admission process. They look at a number of things. They look at your academic GPA. And by that, I'm talking about your grades in math, science, English, history, and foreign language. They look at your grade trends. They look at the rigor of the courses that you've taken. They focus a lot on the rigor of your senior year because they're going to make decisions oftentimes, especially for early action applicants without seeing your senior year grades. But they do look at the courses you've taken, your activities, and they have 2 optional essays. Now, they're a school, Dave, that actually went test optional before the pandemic, and they didn't do it for 1 year. They basically went test optional permanently. I never want to say permanently, but for the foreseeable future. So you can submit your scores if you want, but they are not required. It's not a this year thing. It's not a pandemic thing, and they're not going to be required next year either. So they had already decided test scores are not, the stress that they create, and the angst they create and the bias they create with people with resources being able to prep with the top people aren't worth the value that they're providing. So they came to that conclusion. Now, they have an early action deadline of November 1st, and then a regular decision deadline of mid-February. And then after April, they just go to rolling admissions if they still have openings. You can apply 3 ways: Common App, Coalition App, or U of O has their own app directly on their website. And they do allow appeals. So they say, listen, we don't get it right all the time. So if you don't like your decision, appeal it. We're willing to reconsider. Not everybody's open to appeals. For a large school, they really try to personalize the process, not only the admission process, but just the whole school. But let's talk about the admission process. They encourage you, look up, put your zip code in, find out who your regional admission counselor is, and reach out to them and say, set up a Zoom call one-on-one with your individual admission counselor. We'd love to hear from you. I can't even think of another flagship school that's doing that, emphasizing that. So they really have a personalized approach to the school, and it's one of its more distinctive features is how undergraduate oriented they are. It's very rare for a flagship to be as personal as this in their whole process. Part of it is their size, and part of it is their philosophy. So for a size, it's small. It has been called by several people the most accessible of the West Coast flagship universities, and I can totally understand why. So they do a number of things to support students right away. One of the things they do is they have their first year interest groups, FIGs as they're referred to, and they help new students develop immediately a working and close relationship with the advisor and faculty members as soon as you get into the school. And they have these FIGs. They have 20 freshmen altogether in these classes, and you take 3 courses together around a common theme. I'll talk a little bit more about, this won't surprise you, Dave, but U of O is very, very environmentally conscious as a school. It's a very big emphasis on going green. So one of the common themes that they have is take 3 courses around the theme of going green, or another one that they have is passport to the world's cultures. And so that's another thing you'll find about U of O. You'll also find as a school, U of O is a school that really does lean left and lean liberal in a lot of different ways. And I'll give you a few examples. They're very, very outspoken about the fact that they were founded on Native American lands, and the U.S. government displaced those Native Americans, and they have an indebtedness to the Native indigenous people, and they have a lot of special programming set up there. They're big supporters of the Black Lives Matter movement. They're unapologetic about that. And another thing that they do is they have courses that are focused on this. So, for example, one of the courses that students take as a theme is exploring difference, inequality, and agency in the U.S. How are you going to make Oregon a more equitable and a more inclusive university? And that's one of the things they ask students to write on in terms of as a topic. Now, just a few more things that I haven't mentioned. One thing I'll say about their scholarships. So they have a number of scholarships that you're automatically considered for. One is their Apex Scholarship. Another is their Summit Scholarship, which is $4,000 in-state and $10,000 if you're out-of-state student. And another is their U of O Excellence Scholarship and their Pathway Oregon Scholarship. Now, all 4 of those scholarships, your admission application automatically counts as your scholarship application. And once again, showing their commitment to access, Dave, their Pathway to Oregon program, okay, this is for students who are Pell Grant eligible. It covers all of tuition and fees for Pell Grant eligible students. One of the most generous commitments you'll see out there for a school to Pell Grant recipients, who are from Oregon. So that's just a fantastic scholarship. They also have a bunch of scholarships as well that require application. That would be the STAMP Scholarship, the Diversity Excellence Scholarship, and the Presidential Scholarship. So some scholarships, your admission application is good. Some of them require a separate application. And then they have their this is a really cool thing. They have their Oregon Guarantee. So this is for Oregon students. And the way this works is the amount of money you pay coming in the door as a freshman, it's fixed for all 5 years. So you don't have to worry about getting in and then they do an 8 or 10% increase on you. Like, you're guaranteed the price you come in with for 5 years, it won't go up. So that's a pretty cool thing, that they include. I'm going to share a couple more things, Dave, ask you what you've learned so far, and then then I'll do stats. But a couple other things. U of O oozes school spirit. It is a place that abounds in school spirit, especially football games. The games are packing at Autzen Stadium, and it brings the community together. Lots of rah-rah. And Dave, you mentioned the mascot before, the Ducks.
The Oregon Ducks. The Ducks.
The Ducks.
It's a real bird. It ain't no hokey bird.
It is a real bird. You'll see the yellow and green colors. And if you go to a game, get used to hearing "Go Ducks." In fact, a lot of times they'll greet each other, "Go Ducks." And they compete in the Pac-12 conference. Remember, we called it the Pac-10 once before, Dave, and aged ourselves. But they compete in the Pac-12 conference with 18 sports. Besides football, they're a track and field powerhouse, and a lot of success in cross country and some other sports as well. They have a legendary rivalry with, I'm going to test your knowledge here, Dave. Who's their legendary rival? It's another Pac-12 school. And it's I'm going to give you another hint. And it's in
Oregon State.
Oregon
State University.
Oregon State.
OSU.
Oregon State. Yep. Good one.
And
Good
their
one.
mascot is?
I don't know. You got me. Do you know?
I forgot. I forgot myself.
Hey, man, if you're going to talk trash, you got to back it up. You teed it up and you didn't know.
I forgot.
Well, they also have a pretty big rival with another university known as, I'll test your knowledge on this, who's UW?
University of Washington, man.
Exactly.
Seattle.
Exactly. Yep, that's another huge rival as well. Lots and lots of school spirit. The Huskies. Lots of school spirit there. Another popular place on campus is the Earl Memorial Union, just known really AKA as the EMU. That's a hot spot. That's the student center. That's where over 250 student groups are. That's where people go and hang out and lounge. Another popular thing is going into Eugene and going to the Saturday market, where you've got a craft fair. You've got it's a combination of crafts combined with the farmer's market. And sometimes they have live music. And Eugene is your quintessential college town. It's like in Athens, Georgia. Like everything revolves around the Ducks in Eugene. It's a beautiful, beautiful town, especially in the fall. Very, very outdoorsy. Now, here's a well-known quote, Dave, about the U of O. Yeah. I love this quote. Blend 2 vegetarians, 1 track star, 1 fraternity brother, 2 tree huggers, 3 hikers, and 1 conservative. What have you got? 10 U of O students.
That's right. That sounds like the mix.
Yeah. They've drawn a lot from California recently. It's been a big draw there. It's only 54% in-state, with California being a really, really big draw. But this is a place that cares about the environment like all of Oregon does. I have to respect that. The number one form, what do you think the number one form of transportation is there, Dave? In Eugene. The bicycle. You got it.
Bicycle.
Dave's a
bicycle.
Dave's a biker, by the way, man. This guy will bike, man. You know, in Chicago, it's below zero, and he's calling me from his bike, huffing and puffing. He's got a face mask on. I'm like, man, you trooper, you dude.
That's right. This is an area of the country I know very well.
Yeah, because you stayed
my
up there.
Internship at University of Washington. And I made a couple trips down to, it is truly God's country. And it's very close to an area called the Columbia River Gorge. And Mark, do you know what the Columbia River Gorge is famous for?
I do not. Tell me.
Windsurfing. It is ranked perennially the number 1 windsurfing spot in the world. And you'd think, why on a river? But it turns out that you have the winds coming off the Pacific Northwest coming inland, and you have the river flowing in the opposite direction. And it makes for these incredible waves because it's funneled down a gorge. And let me tell you, if you are not like expert ranked windsurfer, don't do it because you'll die.
Well, then I won't be doing it. Thank you.
But I remember taking us trips, and it was biking trips down to Portland, and then we'd go into the Columbia River Gorge. And so I haven't been to Eugene, but I know that area very well, and it's truly God's country. And I know the University of Oregon, of course, because it is a very, very popular school for a lot of West Coast kids. Kids who are from Seattle, from the Washington area, from Idaho, from California. It is truly a nature lover's paradise, as well as being an exceptionally strong school and a lot of programs that we'll talk about. So this is truly a hidden gem. I think it's a great place to study and just a super place to hang out. And let me add that, you know, if you think about a school where you may want to live for the rest of your life, it's one of those schools where people come from all around and they don't leave the Pacific Northwest. They're staying in Portland or Bend or Eugene or the upper parts of Oregon because it's just a fantastic lifestyle. So that's what I.
You know, Dave, one of my clients moved from Lawrenceville, Georgia, to Eugene. It was a job transfer.
Yeah.
And we did a Zoom call, and immediately, of course, you can't help but notice, like, you got thin. And so she's like, it's the culture here. You know what I mean? Everybody's eating healthy. Everybody's exercising. She lost 38 pounds. And she said, I've never felt better in my life. And she was telling me, you know, the diet and all that kind of stuff. But she said it's just the environment here. People are nature oriented. They're health conscious. And I'm never going back to that old lifestyle anymore. It was encouraging. It was good. It was great.
That's right. That's right. And my love of mountain biking did start in the Pacific Northwest. I remember when I was like in my mid 40s and I decided to treat myself to like a $2,000 mountain bike at the time, partly because my wife wouldn't let me get a motorcycle. And my wife thought that the concept of paying that much for a bike was so ridiculous that she was convinced it was my midlife crisis. And I had to remind her, no, the midlife crisis is when you have a secretary win the Corvette. She didn't get the joke.
that was probably a good thing. But man, I haven't called you Mr. Lincoln Penny in a while. I mean, splurging for $2,000 for a mountain bike, Dave. Man, you're defying your rep. It wasn't pre-owned and 15 years old.
Oh no! It was a Cannondale, man. We loved it. Called the Bad Boy. But we'll talk about that.
Okay. Let's talk about some of their strongest programs because they have some outstanding programs. One, the College of Design. That's an exceptional program. And then 3 very strong programs in the College of Design are architecture in general, interior architecture, and landscape architecture. And they're the only they're the only school, Dave, in Oregon that offers any of those programs. So if you're in state and you want architecture, there's one place to go. And then, of course, because the program's so strong, they attract so many out-of-state people. They're a leader in research in the fields of nanotechnology, optogenetics, and neuropsychology. And, of course, the environmental studies is really, really strong. They've got a green chemistry laboratory. They've got an instrumentation center that was the first in the nation to use non-toxic materials in experiments. They've got a Pine Mountain Observatory that's a field study resource that's used for physics students and astronomy students that's up in the Cascade Mountains. And then they also have the Oregon Institute of Marine Biology, and all these things provide the opportunity for students to really get some hands-on work in their major. They have the Clark Honors College, where a lot of the top students go. It's a liberal arts college within the university that offers senior theses and an opportunity to do extensive research assistantships. And some of the strongest majors, well, business is extremely strong, and they have a really strong sports business major, and they take advantage of the connection with Nike there, and there's lots of opportunities there even for internships. I've already mentioned design. Music and dance are very strong. I mentioned earlier how old their journalism school is, one of the oldest in the country. So journalism, media studies, and then education is very strong. I've already mentioned architecture and environmental stats. So those would be some of the strongest majors. And the law school is really highly respected as well. It's been around for over 100 years. Now for the stats. So 22% of students live on campus in 10 different residence halls. I mentioned before, 54% come from Oregon. A large number come from California. One thing that was a little controversial is they have been intentionally almost prioritizing out-of-state students because of the almost triple tuition, but they're not alone in doing that as schools seek ways of getting revenue. A great way to do it is to go international and go for public schools, go out of state.
The UC schools were doing that about 7-8 years ago until they got called on it, and then the state basically said, you can't do that anymore. So the challenge is you need money, so an easy thing to do is to tap out-of-staters. But then when it starts getting harder to get in, and especially with the UCs because they're so competitive, then your in-state residents say, wait a minute, I'm paying taxpayer dollars and you're making it easier to get in for somebody out of state? Okay, and then they vote. And then you get out of office. And so then legislation gets changed. So that there are a lot of schools that go back and forth trying to find that balance between we want the out-of-state revenue, but we got to protect our in-state students. It's a little easier at a place like Oregon because it does have an 83% acceptance rate versus the 6 UCs that have over 100,000 applications. But you see that in places like Virginia, North Carolina, Texas, Georgia with Georgia Tech in particular, and make it, they've intentionally made it easier as an in-state student because the backlash is just brutal from your in-state residents when they're paying tuition and you're making it harder to get in as an in-state student, As far as the racial diversity, they've always been a school that's been really attractive to internationals. And so they're 10%, which is pretty large for a flagship. International, they're 6% Asian American, 2% African American, 13% Hispanic, Latinx, 8% multiracial. So 34% of students identify as being non-U.S. white students. And then there's 16% of the men go Greek, 20% of the women go Greek. I mentioned already 19,100 undergrads, 17,500 of them are full-time. And small grad school, 3,500.
a little more than 3,500 grad school students. So it's a very undergraduate-focused institution. The average GPA is a 3.59. Once again, average are not cutoffs. It means 50% are lower and 50% are higher. And that's why I usually don't like to give averages. I usually give a distribution, but this time, hopefully, you guys know that by now. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to give you a range on test scores, not a distribution. 530 to 650 is your mid 25 to 50% in evidence-based reading and writing and math, and 22 to 28 is your mid 50%, meaning 25% of students have under a 22 and 25% of students have over a 28. 28% Pell Grant recipients. That is incredibly impressive, Dave. Very, very high to see that number. Of course, nationally, 39% is the national average, but some of your more wealthy private schools, they're bragging when they get to 15%. It's 15 and 16%. Of course, some of that comes from that, really generous scholarship that I mentioned earlier that they have that allows Pell Grant recipients to go for tuition and fees being covered. The Pathway Oregon program, which I think is just fantastic. I mean, that's what Pell was supposed to do. It was supposed to take students of average to under average income and make college affordable. And as Pell has not increased and the cost of attendance has, people have gotten squeezed, but Oregon's making the difference up with this really generous program. A few more stats that I didn't mention. 20% yield, meaning one out of, they have to accept 5 kids to get one, which is, you'll see different yields depending on, it's not an extremely low yield. The University of Denver is at 13%. And then you'll see other schools, that have some cases, 50, 60%. Just depends on the school. Yields are all over the place in college admissions. 85% freshman retention rate, meaning the number of kids that come back the second year. Graduation rate, 60.7%. 4-year graduation rate, 74.4%. 6-year graduation rate, 46% male, 54% female. The big overlap schools. Take a guess, Dave. What do you think their overlaps are?
Probably University of Washington and also some of the California schools, system schools.
And Oregon State, of course.
Oregon State,
and then a couple other real big ones are Boulder, which is also very outdoorsy, Yeah. And University of Arizona as well, another Western flagship. Yeah. And finally, cost of attendance, in-state, $27,659, out-of-state, $52,271.
That's all in, correct?
Yep, all in. So once again, I can't emphasize enough. When I say cost of attendance, it's literally every single penny you pay. It counts the pizza, it counts the movie, it counts the Uber, it counts, student fees, it counts transportation, it counts books, and of course the big items like room and board and tuition. It's literally every penny all in.
Yeah.
Closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to get that. So in-state cost was how much again?
$27,659. $27,659. Yeah. And then out of state, add another $25,000 more. That's, you're going to pay when you go out of state. You're going to. Now, of course, that doesn't count. This is sticker price. So this is not necessarily what it costs everybody. If you get need-based or merit-based aid, then, of course, that's not what you pay. There's nothing wrong with this being a first-choice option, especially in areas where they're strong, and especially if that's a part of the country where you want to live. That's true for a lot of places. Like if you want to go live someplace, going to school there is a great way to start your network there. It's just a healthy place, with the focus on healthy living and the outdoorsiness. It just feels like it has very good work-life balance. And in this age where kids are so stressed out and they're struggling with so many maladies on a mental health, this feels like a very healthy institution.
And Mark, if I'm not mistaken, I think they have a very solid pre-med program, and they have a great feeder program to Oregon Health Sciences. It's a place I interviewed for my residency. So I have actually been there in Portland, and it's a great, great academic medical school and residency facility. So another plug.
And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. Your College Bound Kid is produced by Dave Vasaya of podcastengineers.com. If you find this podcast helpful, it would help us tremendously if you would subscribe and write us a review on your favorite podcast listening station. And please be sure to click the share button and send this to someone you know that can really use this information. The amazing music that you hear is by Victor Allen Weeks. Our image editor is Tauha Khan. Webmaster is Stalianos Dimitru. And marketing designs are by Kimberly Blass. And if you want to get a copy of the book, 171 Answers to the Most Asked College Admissions Questions, you can go right to 171answers.com. And if you want to have a college coaching session with Mark, you can send him a text to area code 404-664-4340. And if you have a question or a few questions that you would like to ask us, and we'll include them on the show, you can just email us at questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com. Every week, we'll take one question and include it in the episode. We don't like your questions. We love your questions. So send them our way. And by the way, check out our website, yourcollegeboundkid.com. Again, we thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to meeting with you again next week.